Welcome back to Franco-American Pathways. In this episode, Anna and Maureen sit down with Joe Boucher. Joe is an accomplished songwriter, musician, and performer. In this interview, we will learn about his life journey, his musical influences, and the history and Franco-American heritage of Biddeford. Joe kindly shared songs that we are including at the beginning and end of this episode. We hope you will enjoy his pieces and take a moment to explore his music. Welcome and happy listening. Bienvenue et très bonne écoute.
In an age of war on a northern shore, a young man loved a lady. In fields of green, Evangeline, a tale of...
Okay, hi there. This is Anna Faraday, and
I'm Maureen Perry.
we are here today with...
Joe Boucher.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us, Joe. We
Thank
are really
you.
excited to have you here. We are going to begin with sort of a broad question about your family. And then we're going to sort of like narrow down into you and your career. So let's begin by talking a bit about your family and how your grandparents came to Maine and specifically how they came to Biddeford.
Yeah. My family, the Boucher wing of my family, are from a little area between Quebec City and Montreal called Plessisville, and settled. They were farmers there. And when work opened up in the mills in the 1920s in New England, they made their way down first to Amesbury, Massachusetts. They had a number of their children there, and my father was the youngest of 10 children, and he was born in Amesbury. And at the ripe age of 1 year old, they uprooted and moved to Biddeford, where, again, there were opportunities for work and a community that felt comfortable with full of French speakers. So they ended up settling in Biddeford, and my family has expanded and taken roots there ever since.
Great.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. Did they leave Amesbury because there were fewer French speakers, or...
There were quite a few French speakers there, and we do still have some members of the family. Some of my father's older siblings ended up taking root there and raising their family. So I've got extended cousins who live in Amesbury, and I've got cousins who live in Dover, New Hampshire, and they, I think they wherever there were opportunities for work and home, they got there, and Biddeford was where my branch of the tree ended up.
Great. So let's talk about your family's musicality while growing up. I know you mentioned this to me when we were talking before. So, how musical was your family growing up?
Yeah, I mean, music is one of those things that was just part of the ether. It was just always around. So I am 3/4 Quebecois and I am 1/4 Acadien. So my mother's side of the family, my grandfather was born in Cataquet, New Brunswick, and followed his brothers to find work in Sanford. So again, they were working in the mills, and that side of the family was incredibly musical. No one was formally trained. It was all about just the Saturday night soirée and people playing the instruments that were around. Everyone learned by imitation. So if you had a mandolin or a banjo or a guitar or a piano, you picked up music that way. And so that was really like the connectivity to my own journey as a musician and as a person who just has always loved music. My father's extended cousins, who still are in Plessisville, would come down every summer, and they always brought their guitars and their squeeze boxes, and we had the soirées right in our own living room in Biddeford. So music was just always there. My My mother, as a child in Sanford, was given piano lessons. So my mother was the first to learn to read music, taking the whole game up a notch. But always, she grew up in an era of. It was sort of, she was just too old for early rock and roll and a little too young for cool jazz of the 20s and 30s. My mother loved the Lawrence Welk Show. She still does. And on weekends, on Saturday nights, throughout the entire time I was growing up, my memories were of my mother watching the Lawrence Welk Show. And in Biddeford, we could get 2 channels with our antenna broadcast out of Quebec, out of Sherbrooke. And one of them actually featured a weekly show called Soirée Canadienne. And she would watch those shows, and as my brother would say, she'd get the fever, and head to our parlor piano, and then play through her music books. And it was mostly the Great American Songbook, lots of George Gershwin and Irving Berlin, and she loved Doris Day and Perry Como, and that was my music education, was sitting on the piano bench next to her.
Cool. So this isn't one of the questions. It's just kind of more of a follow-up.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about your parents. What were they like?
Yeah.
What did they do? And how did they influence you?
Well, I am the youngest of 5 children. My father, Robert Boucher Sr., was the youngest of 10. As I mentioned, my mother was the oldest of 5. So there's this funny family dynamic thing of oldest siblings marrying youngest siblings. So my wife is the oldest in her family. I'm the youngest in my family. Seems to be a pattern, I guess. However the puzzle pieces lock together that make a relationship work. My father was an interesting character in his youth. He was a pool player and secretly kind of made his living that way. But his older brother, my uncle Gil Boucher, was a builder, and my father idolized him, and ended up sort of and not interning with him, but apprenticing with him and becoming a builder on his own. So he worked for his brother for years, and then eventually started his own construction company. And lots of folks in Biddeford, when I was growing up, all my friends' parents worked in the building trades. So we were in the lumber yards and hardware stores. And my mother, I'll go back a little bit. My father left school after the 8th grade. He wanted to play football, and his father wouldn't let him, so he decided that he didn't need to go to school anymore. So that's when his dual careers as a pool player and carpenter took effect. And he ended up dating my mother, who was in Sanford, and she graduated from high school, from St. Ignatius High School. And there was a group of guys from Biddeford and a group of girls from Sanford, and they used to go on these kind of collective weekend dates. So it's the 18-mile trek between Biddeford and Sanford. They'd pile into cars, and that's how they would socialize. And I think most of their friends were part of that group that ended up getting married and raising their families. My mother, her own mother was hospitalized when she was young, so my mother ended up with some of her siblings being put into a not a foster home, but into an orphanage. So she was raised by nuns and was on track to do just that herself until she met this scurrilous character from Biddeford, and she ended up leaving the idea of the convent. She never quite got to the convent, but my father and she married, and while he was out doing the carpentry work, she was home keeping the books and raising children.
That's awesome. I especially love the information about the pool playing.
Yeah.
we actually have a really neat artifact in our collection. It's a poster advertising a local trick shot artist. I forget, it was, I think the last name was Gagnon. And the poster, it shows him blindfolded doing trick shots, and then it says, like, we'll meet the best players in your city in a game after his demonstration. So you get to watch him do all these amazing things, and then I guess if you still feel like competing against him, you can.
Yeah, no doubt my father either won or lost money to him, because one of his other brothers, William, owned a pool hall in Biddeford, so that's where my dad spent a lot of time.
And it's interesting that the dual career, the carpentry, and because in a way, there are some similar skill sets.
Oh, certainly.
Having to judge a level.
Angles and, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Very interesting.
So, yeah. My father's other little path was that he had 2 professional boxing matches. Under the name of Alan Jones. So I need to find out the information on that. But I think he retired undefeated after his 2 boxing matches. But that was another thing that his father did not want him to do. So.
Well, I get why he did it. It was really popular back then.
Yeah, Rocky Marciano was Joe Louis.
Absolutely. We have some boxing collections at the Franco American collection as well, both from local folks who boxed, and also a little bit of information on the Ali Liston fight.
So my brother's wife has a connection to that fight in that she was in utero, and her parents attended the fight, and her father was adjusting his bride's coat so she would be comfortable sitting down, and he turned around and he had missed the entire fight because it was over in seconds. So,
that's the stories that we've heard. It is pretty much, if you went to the concession stand.
Yeah. You missed it.
Or the rest
you missed
it.
Yeah. But yet in legend, millions of people were there and saw it firsthand somehow.
That is what they say.
That's what they say.
All right, Maureen, why don't you ask the next question?
Okay. Let's see where. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what's a good segue here. Do you have some other favorite family stories before we segue into the music?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big family, so I guess there are stories out there. I mean, I was in that generation where my parents and all my friends' parents were the mill workers, and the mill workers sort of evolved into the tradespeople, and then the tradespeople hopefully could. You're always hoping that your kids are going to have more advantages than you could. So I have my cousin Jean-Paul Boucher was one of the first in our family to go to college, and he was a French teacher at Biddeford High School. So I went to Biddeford High School, and as luck would have it, he was my French teacher, and I was a bad student, and he failed me, which was a tough conversation to have when report card time came around. And he failed me for the simple reason was that I was not doing very well and not really trying. But that was that was my life as a French student.
I imagine that made for some uncomfortable Thanksgiving conversations.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah, I wasn't the only bad student in the class. I was always more interested in what was going on outside of the classroom. I did have the subjects that I loved and excelled in, and history and English. I was a bad math and a bad science student, and it was just tough to buckle down with those things. But I'm paying the price now. He was right.
And we were going to ask what it was like for you being one of the family members who didn't speak French.
Mm-hmm. It's that is something that I think about a lot, and as I've sort of delved into studying more about, particularly New England Franco culture, I realize that I'm very much not alone in that. It feels like there's, I don't want to say like a generational trauma that's happened where you feel like a stranger in your own family. And it's, probably a trauma that lessens as the successive generations go by without making that contact with the other part of their family. Because as an immigrant group, the French Canadians could go back and forth. It's not like, leaving your home in Sicily, getting on a boat and never seeing your family again. I mean, there's the stories of the Irish wake, right, where they would hold a wake for you before you got on the boat to America because they were never going to see you again. But here the ties could remain pretty strong, and my father really kept up the bonds with his cousins. So in my family, those connections were always around. My parents didn't pass the language on to me. For a lot of families, I know that the reason is because of the prejudice and bias that, was codified into law, that French wasn't shared. And in our family, it was less about that. And my older siblings, so I'm the youngest of 5 kids, as I said. My oldest brother is 14 years older than me. My next brother is 13 years older than me. My sister's 12 years older than me. They all spoke French as a first language, and that's just the way it was. And they would come home from school and speak English. Parents would speak to them in French. They'd reply in English, and they just sort of surrendered the effort, I guess. My parents were, obviously bilingual, but by the time they got around to my brother Bill and I, there was no French spoken at home to the children. It became the secret language that grown-ups could speak. And growing up in Biddeford, everyone I knew was French, and I always thought that grown-ups just had this secret language that they could speak French. So it's been that struggle in my adult life as a bad student, doing what I can to rediscover my family heritage. And language is obviously the biggest part of it, but there's a lot more to it. And I guess I'm finding my way in through cultural traditions and those experiences, and doing what I can to pick up a little bit of language along the way.
That's a great answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
Our next question is, what was it like growing up, Franco, in Biddeford?
I have twins, and I ask my twins or people ask my twins sometimes, what's it like being a twin? And they respond, well, I don't know. It's all I've ever known. And being Franco in Biddeford was just life until I was 18 and left home and went to Orono. And suddenly there are all these people that have these different experiences that I just wasn't exposed to. There was a level that, as an 18-year-old person, that people come from all over the place and people are different. But learning that there are, expressions and words that other people don't use, sort of gave me pause. And it's a bigger world than I thought it was. And Biddeford has evolved and changed so much, in the last 10 years, compared to the place that I left in 1987, where Biddeford was a bit of a punching bag for a long time. I talked about the biases and prejudices against Franco-Americans that kind of existed around the state and around New England. But Biddeford, as a working class factory town, had a whole other layer of that kind of thing to kind of march uphill against. So I when I was a kid, it was it's just my hometown, and I rode bikes and played with my friends and played Little League and did all the things that kids did. Didn't realize that I didn't know that we weren't rich. We were just sort of doing our thing growing up. But it was really interesting to start meeting people who came from other cultures, and comparing myself, not in a hierarchical way, but just like, oh, that's the same but different, and don't even get me started on figuring out that people weren't all Catholic too.
Absolutely. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Talking about the Milltown reputation for a moment, before getting in the recording studio, we were talking about your Piano Men concert from several years ago.
Yeah.
And I remember your lead-in to Billy Joel's Allentown.
Yeah.
And you had likened the Allentown in that song
to
Biddeford and Lewiston.
Yep. Yeah, if you know that Billy Joel song from 1982, Allentown, it's written about a town that's seen better days and a generation that's seen its opportunities shrink, and so I performed that song pretty regularly, doing the music of Billy Joel. I played that song in Allentown, Pennsylvania, with the Allentown Symphony. And I talked about that then, how that song, which came out, I was 13 when it came out, and it resonated with me, and much more so as I was older and understood the bigger picture. But being in a place where it feels like the party's over, but I'm still here. That every child had a pretty good shot to get at least as far as their old man got, is one of the lyrics of the song. And, I found myself as a teenager in Biddeford and like wondering where my opportunities were going to be. Guidance counselors weren't pushing people to go to college so much. The building trades were usually your best opportunity to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And that was the experience for teenage boys, even in my generation. I'm Generation X. And we've got plenty of kind of psychological stuff to unpack about as Generation X feeling like, well, what happened to the world? Well, when is it our turn?
As the song says, all the promises our teachers gave.
Yeah.
We work hard.
If we behave. Yeah, 100%. It's just, that every word of that song feels so true. And Allentown, Pennsylvania has also undergone a similar renaissance, like the Biddessance that they talk about in Biddeford, where the town is flourishing, and, the people are strong, and they're good people, and the opportunities that their parents have aren't there, but they've created their own new opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to see a lot of these former industrial towns revitalizing in interesting ways, both here in Maine and other places too.
Yeah.
Like New York and Pennsylvania.
Right. The mayor of Biddeford, the former mayor of Biddeford, Alan Cassavant, is an old family friend. And when he was first running for mayor, he was talking about the whole paradigm shift that Biddeford needs to think of itself as more than a mill town, because it's not that anymore. And he did a fundraiser. It was very early on when I was launching my show, and I played just with the band, playing some music at this fundraiser, and played the song Allentown and referred to Biddeford as Allen's Town.
That's pretty good.
In my day, they used to just call dad jokes jokes. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is fair.
yeah,
I think everybody, regardless of gender or age, has dad joke abilities.
yeah. I encourage it.
And if the joke fits.
That's right.
Right. Exactly. So.
And if it's not doing anybody any harm.
Those are the best kinds.
And, are there other places in your music where you see your roots figuring in?
As a younger sibling, I spent a lot of time with my older siblings' record collections. So I grew up on a very healthy diet of Beatles and Crosby, Stills and Nash and all of that, great classic rock music. But that through line of folk music, Quebecois folk music, was just always present. As well as the Great American Songbook and the music that my mother loved. My name was not always Joseph Boucher. For the first day of my life, I was Perry Boucher, named after Perry Como. And my mother ended up changing her mind before leaving the hospital. But yeah, I was nearly another cardigan-wearing Perry in the world. But the folk music that I sat with my family and loved, and I loved listening to these call and response songs they did. I didn't understand them, but it was fun. And in what year was it? 1998. I traveled overseas for the first time with a theater company in Ireland. And on the nights that we're not working or performing, we spent time in the pubs. And I got it. I finally connected all of the dots, and it felt like home. It was the same experience. It was all the same characters with different names, but the language barrier was erased, and it was a really emotional thing for me. And I ended up diving deep into Irish folk songs, and I love jigs and reels and all of that. But what I really loved were balladeers, Tommy Makem and Liam Clancy, and I just absorbed that music. And I was in a band at the time doing original rock and roll stuff, and one of my bandmates said, "Well, you love this music so much. Why don't you try writing something?" And I ended up writing a song which had a deep personal family connection with a deep personal family story called Solace. And I never topped that in any of the writing I did after that, but I really have always loved folk music, and like my grandfather from Connecticut, I love picking up stringed instruments and figuring out how to play it. I'm also not a trained musician, but his mandolin hangs right next to my desk, and I play that when I can.
Yeah, so let's talk then a little bit more about your career and how you shaped this interest in music into the path that you've been on, that got you to where you are now.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I am now. I've been very fortunate, very blessed to have had lots of experiences in the arts. None of it was designed. My original design was to join the rebellion and fight against the Empire and blow up the Death Star. That was my plan. I was going to be Luke Skywalker, and as a kid growing up playing music and primarily being a piano player, as I got into my teenage years, I was trying to put bands together. Wanted to play in a rock and roll band. Being a piano player sort of dictates a style that you're going to get into. So, Paul McCartney, Billy Joel, Elton John, that was sort of where I was steered to. So back in those days, in the 1980s, everybody that wanted to be in a band usually bought a guitar, usually tried to grow their hair out and tease it nice and big. So I was always this short-haired kid wearing skinny ties to band practice. But I realized early on that I loved songwriting. And, my first songs were not good, but they were earnest, and I got better at it. And I started listening to songwriters who were, more complex lyrically, and Elvis Costello and Joe Jackson. And this was music that sort of got into, like, they called it college rock in the day. But that was sort of the path that I was on as a musician. And I was in bands from high school into college, and just always trying to get better. And for a while, I was in a band called the Frodis Caper, and we recorded 4 albums. There were 4 songwriters in that band, so it's a lot of jostling for real estate on an album. But we gave it a pretty good try. Our songs got played on radio stations around Maine, and we were opening for a couple of national acts, and we sort of did what we could. I had made a promise to myself that if at the age of 35, that I wasn't making a living as a singer-songwriter, that I was going to recalibrate and figure out what to do. So my 35th birthday came, and the band was feeling like it had kind of run its course. It was around the time that my father was sick, and shortly before he died, and I found myself kind of ready to step away from music. So I got married, and married an ethnic Catholic from New York City. She's Italian and German, grew up on Staten Island, and we come from remarkably different places, but they are remarkably the same. We talk about our kind of shared values and our experiences growing up, where Biddeford and Staten Island are not so different, in case anybody's wondering, in case anyone's ever pondered that fact. But I got married, and then I accepted a job with the Portland Symphony Orchestra. My day job, while I was doing all of this rock and roll stuff, was working in technical theater. So I was a scene shop carpenter, which were using the carpentry skills, working summers with my father and my brother. And then I learned all about lighting and stage management, and that was my career. So I took this job with the Portland Symphony, and when I took the job at the Symphony, a very good friend of mine said, "This is perfect for you. It combines your 2 greatest loves, music and moving furniture." So I was with the Portland Symphony for 16 years, but while I was there, I saw the concerts that were performed, hundreds and hundreds of rehearsals and concerts, but they not only performed the music of Mahler and Mozart and Beethoven, but they had pops concerts, which are ways to try to draw folks into the concert hall who might not have a background in classical music. And it would be the music of Louis Armstrong with the symphony, and the one that got my attention was Classical Mystery Tour, the Beatles, music of the Beatles with symphony orchestra. And I had not played music for about 2 years, and the light bulb went off. It's like, oh, I could still play if I could come up with an idea for a show that could work with a symphony orchestra, which is not a small lift. But I thought about the music that I loved playing, music that would work on that scale with a 60-piece orchestra. And I ended up with this idea for Piano Men, the music of Elton and Billy. I talked to a friend of mine who I had worked in children's theater with years before, who is a classical composer and an orchestrator. He thought the idea had legs. He said, it's going to take me about a year to write the parts for 20 songs, but we launched it in 2011. Billy Joel's drummer, Liberty DeVito, played the first concert with us at the State Theater. That was pretty cool. It was pretty intimidating because he knows how these songs go. But yeah, we booked the State Theater with family and friends backing, and hired a company to come and record it and film it so we could start pitching it to orchestras, and it worked. There was no roadmap of how to create something like that, but it worked.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. So our final question that we have written down, which doesn't have to be our final question ever, is moving a little bit more into your own songwriting.
Yeah.
So this is specifically your adaptation of Evangeline into a song. Can you talk a little bit about that and what sort of gave you the idea?
Yeah, I mean that harkens back to the love of folk music and story songs. And as I had been over the years delving into learning my own family's story and going up to Caraquet, New Brunswick, and seeing the little town that my grandfather Pepe Lejaia came from, there was this kind of gnawing desire to get to know everything I could about my family's story and understanding what happened to the Acadians, and knowing that one of the best known depictions of that story is by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. It's like, oh, he's right here in Portland. I have a son named Henry. Look at this. All this, it's obvious. I need to just keep following this thread until I see where it goes. My songwriting took a very, very long pause after I got married. Being happy and content is terrible for songwriters. if you're plying your trade in the angsty Generation X way. But I read the Longfellow poem, and the language is beautiful, and the story is fascinating. It's a fictionalized story, but it's a fascinating story, and wanted to see if there was a way to tap into that story and into a language that might be more accessible. And I would pick it up and put it down and pick it up and put it down over years. I'd have an idea. Melody generally always came first for me in writing songs. So the melody was all there. But it was working on crafting lyrics that I thought rose to the occasion of that melody. It's an epic story, and in a song that's going to be 3.5 to 4 minutes long, trying to make every word count. It's building a house of blocks, and this needs to be here for a reason. So finding my way into that story, and it's like, all right, what are the pillars of this story? What parts have to be there? And where can I find connectivity from verse to verse and with chorus. The songwriters that I love, talk about the Beatles, and particularly John Lennon and Elvis Costello are lyricists and they're poets, and I love the economy of words. That everything, it's almost like sculpting, where you're taking away what's not needed and leaving what is needed. So there are very verbose ways to tell a story, or you can kind of get right down to the nugget of it. Evangeline is the first song I've written in almost 20 years. So I'm working on recording it. And figuring out what instrumentation I want to use. There's a lot of ways that I could go with it. So that's the next piece of it.
Fantastic. Great. And I hope that you will let us know when you do make that recording of the Evangeline song.
100%, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I was curious, you mentioned being a dad. Have your kids picked up music?
They have. I didn't want them to learn the way I did. I wanted them to have better opportunities. I've been fortunate in what I've been able to do in my career as a musician, but a lot of it would have been so much easier if I'd been a good student, which I was just not. I was curious. I've always been one of those people who, if I buy some piece of technology, I don't look at the manual. I just start pressing buttons to see what happens. So I wanted my kids to have some proper training. So my oldest son, Henry, is no longer taking piano lessons, but he did for a few years with my good friend, Peter Dugas. And my twins, George and Jane, have been taking piano lessons for about 3 years now. And they just did their first gig. They've done recitals, but they're doing First Communion and Confirmation this year. And their service project was to go and play a little mini concert at my mother's nursing home.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So that was that.
Oh,
We did
lovely.
that on Saturday.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great idea. Yeah.
That's a really wonderful service project.
Yeah. So I offered the assembled audience, if they want autographs, George and Jane are right there.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's better to get the autographs now.
Get it now.
And then you can say that,
Yeah.
oh, P.S.
I knew them. I knew them then. That's right. I knew him when he was Perry.
That's right. Exactly. So do you have any closing remarks for us?
Well, I'm thrilled that I was invited to come and talk. I've been listening to a number of podcasts. I love this podcast, hoping that I would have something interesting to say, or another chapter to add to the bigger story. I am a Franco-American musician who doesn't speak French or read music. So my question for myself is always, what is my place in the world, and what's my part? And it's comforting to know that everybody's kind of on the same seeking journey.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed Anna and Maureen's conversation with Joe Boucher. You can find more information about Joe, his work, and his performances through his website, joebouchermusic.com. We are very grateful for Joe's time and insights. We also want to thank Joe and Robert Sylvain for our theme music, and as always, to WMPG for letting us use their studio space. To all of our faithful listeners, we hope you will stay in touch and tune in for the next episode of Franco-American Pathways. À bientôt.
In an age of war on a northern shore, a young man loved a lady. In fields of green, Evangeline, a tale of a Katie. Young Gabriel, he loved her well, and here they were to marry. On their father's land, their able hands, the future they would carry. just claim the land for king and crown. Evangeline and Gabriel were torn up from the masses, with their world in flames, their family names were scattered with the ashes. As time and tide went drifting by, she wandered far to find him. Though her faith was strong, the lover's song would echo just behind him. If the world they only known was gone in flames, would the world they long to find recall their names? Tell me, have you seen Evangeline, who was longing for a fellow, where she bade farewell to Gabriel in fields and flowers of yellow? Though her faith in God and hope would never fade, until she found her dying love, and there he laid. Then he closed his eyes and slept in sweet release, and forever by his side they rest in peace. So right or wrong, the truth belongs to the ones who sow the story. And a tale of woe is told as though your sorrow was your glory. Your life has only begun. Said a father one day to his son, as he lay him in bed, tucking blankets, he said, may you dream all of laughter and fun. Now listen to me, said the man, can hold the whole world in your hand. I'll be proud if you see places I'll never see. If you run just as far as you can, lay your head down, lay your head down to the solace that you are returning. Peace finally found, now I won't make a sound, and I'll see you again in the morning. Now every sun rises and falls. In the end it will come to us all. Not for us to decide when we're born, when we die, only how we will live till we're called. So of every conceivable kind, let peace be the treasure you find. What a life will be worth when we're laid in the earth is decided by those left behind. Lay your head down, lay your head down to the solace that you are returning. Peace finally found, now I won't make a sound, and I'll see you again in the morning. Lay your head down, lay your head down to the solace that you are returning. Peace finally found, now I won't make a sound, and I'll see you again in the morning. You can still see the love in his eyes. He can still see the boy when he tries, but he can't hear a sound as he kneels to the ground and he casts his eyes up to the sky. Now my road is longer than some, said a father one day to his son. But as far as he goes, now he'll never know the man that the boy would become. Lay your head down, lay your head down to the solace that you are returning. Peace finally found, now I won't make a sound, when I'll see